Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel. My name is Sammy, and today we're going to talk about my top 4 books of 2026. But before we get started into that, we are going to go through my Fable account. So this is just going to be like my genre, how I am on my reading goal, my reader summary, all that kind of stuff. But again, using Fable does not mean you're not a reader. Using Goodreads doesn't mean that you're You use whatever book tracking app you want. I also have a reading journal that I found at Target that I use now, just because sometimes I like to write about my books, just like in a little journal. Makes it a little bit easier on me if I finish a book and I don't have time to type out all of the things for Fable. I can just write it in my book and then move on and then come back and put that review in on Fable. I also do use Goodreads. Those links will be in the description below. I like Fable a little bit more just because I can change the colors to match me, match my personality. I like the little flower pot that has the little petals of how many books you read for your reading goal. It just kind of gives me that little inspiration to read a little bit more than what Goodreads does. This is not me trashing on Goodreads. This is not me saying Fable's so much better than Goodreads or anything like that. This is just me, my personal opinion. I'd rather use Fable than Goodreads, but I do use both. Just because some authors, if you get ARC readings, they would rather have your Goodreads than Fable, just because Goodreads is more well known, that works with Kindle. They're kind of hand in hand. So I'm not saying Goodreads is bad. I'm not saying Fable is bad. They both have they have pros and cons for each of them. I use both, but my main go-to for Instagram posts, all that kind of stuff, is Fable instead of Goodreads. Now, let's get into all of the nitty-gritty within my Fable account. So, my current most read author is Lexi Davis. I have read 2 of her books. Lexi Davis is a very good author, in my opinion. You guys can form your own opinion. This is not me saying, read this author, read this author. This is me just sharing my experience with reading and making reading feel more inclusive to all. If you did not catch that video, it will also be linked in the description of my platform and my learning disability. So that will be also linked below and in the iCard above. So I have an average rating of 4.3 stars. And then my most read genre is romance. And then I have finished 10 books this year. I haven't really finished one yet this month. I'm currently reading From Whom the Bell Tolls by Jessa Lynn. It is very, very good in my opinion. I'm almost done with it, and I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that I'll have it done by the end of April, just so I can at least have a book read each month. That's kind of my goal. Also, is to have one book read each month. Grad school does make it a little bit hard, especially now that we're towards the end. Finals are coming up, all that kind of stuff. It does make it hard to find time to read within studying and all that, but I do try to find time to read before I go to bed, maybe 5-10 minutes at most, just so I can unwind and let my brain kind of chill. So there's that. And then my reader summary is a passionate romantic. You've been reading fiery romances, complex love tales. You gravitate towards love stories that defy expectations. So those are my reader summary and all that from Fable. So now let's get into actually meat and potatoes of today's video. We're going to talk about my top 4 books of 2026, as we are in April. And then hopefully by the end of the year, I'll be able to give you a top 10 books or top 6 or something like that, just at the end of the year. So my first book is Gracie Gets Lucky by Lexi Davis. I gave this a 5-star review. This book I don't know how to explain author Lexi Davis in one word. I really couldn't give you a one-word explanation of this author. But her books are just amazing. Both of the books I have read by her are novellas, and I'm hooked within the first page. It just gets you right into the story. Some people might not like novellas because they're rushed. You feel rushed or whatever. I love novellas. I love the pace of novellas sometimes because you get to know the character just enough to where you're like, well, if they make another book on this character, I'd want to know more. That kind of aspect. But a lot of my books are spicy romance books, so take that with a grain of salt, as you will. Also, all of my books that I have read on my Instagram account, that will also be linked below, has how I rate them on spice level. Everybody's spice level is different. It's just like if you were eating food and somebody looks at you and goes, this isn't really spicy, and then you eat the food and you're like, this is a lot spicy. What are you talking about? It's the same thing. People tell you it's not. It's the same thing. But I like the way that she had some spice in there, but it also, you told a story. There wasn't, the plot was spice. You know, sometimes we don't like that. My second book is Tempting the Scoundrel by Katarina Kendrick. This was my one and only historical fiction book that I have read, and it was a historical fiction romance spice book, and it was so good. There were times when I was just reading it till the wee hours of the night, and I finished it super quick just because of how hooked I was. I do think that the story that's told in this is a very, very good story. I like the way that it's told through. You see how these characters are now versus how they were 4 years ago. When I first started getting the flashbacks, I got a little bit confused, but that's just how my brain is. But after I learned how, you could tell by, looking at the date on the chapter, made my life a little bit easier. I just skipped the chapter and the date and all that, and I just kept reading. So that is on me, not the author. Still a wonderful book, and I rate this a 4 out of 5 stars. Our next book, which is an ARC book that I have, is Through Lust We Fall by author Cassandra Fox. So this book was wonderful, had a great story base. It was just, you connected with the characters. You learned of their backstory, you connected with them, both of the FMC and the MMC. You learned and connected and grew with the characters. And when things happened, you were like, I feel the same way that this character does, but I also feel bad for this character. And you just get that back and forth battle that just makes you feel good reading the book. This book was given a 4 out of 5 stars. And then our last book is Willowbrook Wishes by 2 seconds. I have so many authors in my head, I couldn't tell you all of them. By Kristen Reeds. Willowbrook Wishes was my first ARC book that I was ever given as a bookstagram account. I read this book early in January. This book comes out in May. I'm so excited for this book to come out and get the physical copy of it. It was so good. This is the only non-spice book that I have on this list, but the story sat so deep in my heart, as it was in rural Ohio. As someone who's from West Virginia, Ohio is just a hop, skip, and a jump. And there were aspects of 4-H in there, and I was a 4-H kid when I was a younger kid. I say that like I'm not 22, but I thoroughly enjoyed Willowbrook Wishes, and I'm so excited to see what else Kristen has to come out with, because she's just a wonderful storyteller. And I couldn't have been more excited and more honored to be an ARC reader for a new indie author and their very first book to ever release. That, to me, sits as a honor of pride in my heart. And this book was also given a 5 out of 5 stars. So, that is all I have for today's video. If you guys have any questions, comments, things you'd like to see on this channel, drop them down below in the comments. And until the next time, I hope you guys have a fantastic day and enjoy your reading. You deserve a little break. Bye-bye!